Of a solemn day. 25 years ago to the day, Lamar Johnson was convicted in the Circuit Court of St. Louis for a crime that he did not commit. That injustice happened in this state, in this city, and not far from this hallowed space. This place was chosen because it matters. It reminds us of how wrong we were and are, and how far we have yet to go. But it too reminds us that while the arc of the moral universe is long, that it does bend toward justice. In 1846, that's 174 years ago, the Scots sued for the simple right to be free people. They lost that case that they filed not far from here. It was dismissed. Not on the merits, not on the truth of what that they submitted to the court, but on a technicality. And Lamar Johnson knows about being dismissed on a technicality. But the Scots pressed on, and for 11 years continued to fight for their freedom in the courts, ultimately landing, of course, as we all know, at the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States, who said, ultimately, that they must remain slaves. But that wasn't the end, right? That decision sparked a devastating civil war in this country, and eventually they were free. Lamar Johnson, too, will not give up. His legal team will not give up on him. And I know that those here will not give up on him either. To accept otherwise is to betray this country and our love for her, that we fight for her better angels. We did that in 1846, and we continue to do that, sadly, in 2020. We stand together not just for him, but for others like him. We'll hear from other exonerees from Missouri today. And we stand together for the simple notion that the truth matters, that the truth is enough, and eventually the truth will prevail. After the Supreme Court of the United States handed down that dreadful decision into the Dred Scott case, one of our moral leaders, Frederick Douglass, expressed his outrage and his agony over that decision. But he also expressed his hope in this country and in the righteousness of the truth to always prevail. He said, "The more we have done by our voice, by our vote, the more clearly and solemnly comes the sense of our duty to remain the course and to undo what we have done. Justice has never been given freely by those with power. It has always been demanded, it has always been taken through litigation, like we have pending, through activism, like this today, through the power of your voice and your vote." Lamar Johnson expresses his deep appreciation for the showing of solidarity. Together we have power, and he will be coming home. I'd like to introduce you. Thank you. Introduce you now to Tricia Bushnell, the director of the Midwest Innocence Project.
Thank you, everybody. That was Lindsay Reynolds, who is lead counsel for Lamar Johnson. So good to meet you. So you heard, my name is Tricia Rojo Bushnell, and I'm the executive director of the Midwest Innocence Project, and I'm also counsel for Mr. Johnson. And I'm here because I want to talk today a little bit about what we think about when we serve our clients, and what that means when we look around at what's happening in the world today, when we talk about innocence, the presumption of innocence, and who gets it. Lamar Johnson is one of just many, many, many Black individuals in the United States who is not entitled or is not given the presumption of innocence that is supposed to be entitled to the Constitution of the United States every day. We see that around the country as folks come together from an artery for George Floyd, for Breonna Taylor, for Sandra Bland, for individuals who were not given the presumption of innocence, and that ultimately cost them their lives. Lamar Johnson also wasn't given a presumption of innocence. 25 years ago, he was picked up for a crime he did not commit. And when he said he did not commit, and when there was no evidence that he did, the state created evidence. We know now from a thorough investigation that police reports were manufactured to create a motive that didn't exist. That the eyewitness who said he could not have seen who the real perpetrator was, who committed the crime in the dark wearing a mask, was given payments that went undisclosed to make an identification of Lamar Johnson. That the jailhouse informant witness himself had other parts of his records that had not been disclosed and had racial animus in letters that went undisclosed. What's important to know about what it means for Lamar Johnson, that innocence wasn't enough, that he was able to be convicted despite his clear evidence, that they were able to use evidence that was unreliable to convict him, is that he has been fighting for this for 25 years. Lindsay and I and the rest of the legal team gets to stand up and we get to say these are the things that are happening, but the truth is Lamar is the person who has been fighting for this. Lamar has been the individual who has found much of this evidence and presented it to the courts who declined to hear it, who dismissed it without even having a hearing. It should not take lawyers to have the truth come out in court. It should not take privilege to have the truth come out in court. Lamar Johnson was entitled to the presumption of innocence, and now when his innocence has been proven, and it is clear and convincing, and the real perpetrators have confessed, it should not take anything more than his innocence to bring him home.
Yeah.
Over a year ago, Kim Gardner, circuit attorney, filed a motion for new trial, saying Lamar Johnson deserves to be home. And he's still waiting. We don't believe that that is justice, that a criminal legal system that knows that someone is innocent should still remain there. And that's why we are so grateful to see everyone here today who believes innocence is enough. Individuals are entitled to a presumption of innocence, and innocence should be enough to bring you home. So I am able to stand up here and speak and give this information, but Lamar Johnson is not. And the reality is, this is Lamar Johnson's story. This is his life. This is what's happening to him. And no one is listening until the lawyer comes along, and we believe that is wrong. So for today, we're very happy that Mike is going to join us here. He's a longtime supporter of Lamar, to read you some words from Lamar Johnson himself. Thank you, Mike.
Let me first say, folks, that I am privileged to be here and be able to read a statement from Lamar, a dear friend and my brother in Christ. To my family, friends, and supporters, thank all of you for coming out, supporting me during what's been the most difficult time in my life. I can't begin to adequately explain how it feels to be wrongly convicted of murder and sentenced to die in prison. The only thing that has kept me going for the past 25 years is the hope that one day the truth would come out and I'd be allowed to go home. I never imagined that when the truth did come out, I'd get entangled in a web of arguments about procedural rules and technicalities, while the Attorney General would deny me justice because of what I didn't file and when in which court. I continue to trust that God didn't bring me this far to drop me off. As to the obligatory question of whether or not I'm bitter or angry, I've long since let it all that go. If I've learned anything, it's that holding on to the hurt people have caused me would be simply trading one prison for another.
Yeah.
I again thank all of you for coming and supporting not just me, but the cause of all the innocent men and women in Missouri's prisons. It is without question that innocence is enough. And I sincerely believe that fact will touch the hearts of those in authority deciding my case and move them to do what's right. Please stay safe and well out there, Lamar. That is Lamar, and yes, a couple more.
Thank you, Mike. Next up, at the Midwest Innocence Project, we talk a lot with individuals about knowing your prosecutor. Your prosecutor is the individual that decides what is justice for your community. And today, next, we have up speaking St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner, who filed a motion for new trial, asking for Lamar Johnson's conviction to be overturned.
I just want to say good afternoon, everybody. This is very difficult for me because when you are the prosecutor in the city of St. Louis, and it was your office that I was not the prosecutor at the time of Lamar Johnson's case, but it brings me great pain because I asked his attorney, I asked the Innocence Project when we filed the motion for the trial to actually meet Mr. Lamar Johnson. The prosecutor never really meets the person unless you're that line prosecutor who's prosecuting that case. You never really meet the person that you send away for a long period of time. And what I ask my prosecutors a lot of times to look at people, not just for the charges or the file that's across your desk. We have to understand those are people and lives. And we have the ability to forever change someone's life. So when I asked Ms. Lindsay Reynolds and I asked Trisha, do you think Lamar Johnson would mind me speaking to him? I had great discomfort because I felt like I would be bitter, I would be sad. Excuse my French if I'm offending anybody, I would be pissed when I have overwhelming evidence of my innocence. And this is, I came up here with a speech, but this is not a speech. I'm gonna say I'm sorry to Mr. Lamar Johnson and his family because I really could not have, I didn't have the words to tell him because I felt like when I saw him, I saw the pain and hurt in his eyes. I saw he was crying. It almost made me cry. And I wanted to, tell his family here today that I'm sorry that when I filed the motion for new trial, I believed, and some people don't believe it, the only reason why Mr. Lamar Johnson is in prison today is not because he's not innocent. It's because we have people who are in the status quo tacticians who want to settle political scores and status quo, make an example because I'm the first African-American prosecutor in the city of St. Louis. It's people who believe that when you have overwhelming evidence that your father is not guilty because of who I am, we're not focusing on him and his evidence. We're focused on who the prosecutor is. But I'm telling you, innocence is enough, and I'm going to make sure that I can do everything in my power to make sure that Mr. Lamar Johnson walks free.
All right.
I'm not going to stop until justice is served. And unfortunately, this is not the only case we probably have. That's the sad thing about it. But I want to say, and I see his beautiful daughters, Mr. Lamar Johnson is able to language in prison 20 plus years because of politics. That's simply it. Because there are people who don't care about basic dignity and humanity to say innocence is enough. And by the way, innocence does not have an expiration date. Justice does not have an expiration date. And I just want to say I'm fighting because I believe in that principle, and we're going to fight to bring your father home because I see the pain and the hurt, and I saw the pain and the hurt in your father's face. And I didn't want to touch him because I felt embarrassed at what the system and what the Circuit Attorney's Office did to contribute to this innocent man being in prison. So I'm sorry. And to Mr. Lamar Johnson, I want to meet you while you're free so I can tell you I am sorry in person. Thank you, and I appreciate you. I'm Kim Gardner, Circuit Attorney for the City of
Well, good afternoon. My name is Brittany Johnson, and this is Kiara Barrow. We're both Lamar Johnson's daughters. And I guess I'll start off first. I just want to say thank you to everybody that came out. I know I was one of the little lady, you know, it's just, you know, it just takes time out of the day, and I just want to thank everybody for doing that. You know, you don't have to be here. And, you know, I'm just here because, you know, I've learned to live without my father and without him being here physically, but he's always been there for me mentally. And I just feel like everything has came to the light, and you know, when it's so much evidence saying that your father is free, you know, you just want to get to the bottom of everything and just make sure that he gets home to us, and you know, everything just comes to the light, you know, about the justice system, you know, about Black Lives Matter, about everything that's going on in the world right now. Not just with my father, like every innocent man. And, you know, I just want to say thank you all. And thank you for believing in what's right, and that's getting my father home. Especially when all the evidence is just saying that, you know, he's innocent, and, you know, he hasn't been fighting this for just a year or two. Like, this has been going on since I was a little girl, you know, just growing up and just learning to grow without him. You know, you're like, okay, yeah, my father's innocent, but, you know, I just feel that, you know, there has to be, like, even just everybody has to know about this. Like, not just us. Like, because we just take what they give us. So we definitely have to, you know, get justice and make sure that, you know, just try to be as pure as possible and be there for each other, you know. I don't know, but I just thank everyone, and, you know, just thank you all for coming. Let's keep shining the light on this situation and get everyone in tune with what's going on. And that's all I can say is just thank you. Thank you to everybody. I just want to thank everyone who's here today, and those who are not, who have been very supportive of my father and our entire family. There are no words or speech that can truly illustrate how my father's wrongful conviction has impacted my life. A part of me was taken, and even though that was 25 years ago, the adversity, the pain continues to resurface every day of my life. Despite the circumstance that we have endured over the past 25 years, there's so much that I have learned, unlearned, and am continuing to learn from my father. Our family, from the bottom of our hearts, we are begging that the criminal justice system does what they are supposed to do, and that is grant justice.
Thank you. Up next, we have Jamala Rogers from the Organization for Black Struggle.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Organization for Black Struggle, we stand in solidarity with the Johnson family in the struggle for freedom for Lamar Johnson. I want to start by saying sometimes people will say everybody in prison says they're innocent. And folks like Ricky and Brother Willie B know that that's not the case. Most of us who've been doing this work know that that's not the case. my experiences, most of the people who've done wrong own up to it. They don't say they're innocent when they're not. They may complain about the amount of time that they got for the crime that they committed, but rarely do they say they're innocent when they're not. Even the women who kill their partners and spouses, that was justifiable homicide, will say, yes, I did it, and here's why. So when we hear somebody like a Lamar Johnson who says, I'm innocent, we ought to start with trust and believe. Trust and believe. Because there are so many Lamar Johnsons inside of our cages today that I don't even know if Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner will ever get to all of them. Because it takes a long time, y'all, to put all these pieces together, and it's very expensive. We work with cases. OBS has worked with these cases, from Ella Reasonover on down to Daryl Burton. All of them cost money, to the tune of $250,000 to $500,000. So when you sign up to be on the Innocence Project's list, there's a long waiting list. There's a long waiting list for the Centura Ministries. It costs money. A city circuit attorney doesn't have those resources, y'all. As much as Kim is going to try to do, she does not have the resources. That's why elections are important, and they have consequences. We knew what we were doing when we elected Kim Gardner, right? We understood that we wanted a sea change of what was happening in that hellhole called the prosecutor's office. That had nothing to do with justice, y'all. I mean, he's not justice for just us. But now we have a chance to continue the progress that's been made. She's trying to deal with a bunch of other cases. Federico Lobe's case, he's been in there damn near 30-something years. There's folks who've missed, and you heard from his daughters. It's just whoosh, 25 years gone. Come on, y'all, think about what you've done in 25 years. Weddings, births, deaths, graduations, all of that, he's missed. Innocence is more than enough, y'all. It's gotta be the bedrock of what our criminal justice system is built on. If we don't have that, we really don't have anything. Because that means any one of us could be victims of injustice. So I want us to remember that, to remember Lamar Johnson when we go to vote August 4th. And this is a shameless plug for Kim Gardner. I admit it. I know this is not trying to be a political rally. That's what I'm saying, Vicki. But elections have consequences. We cannot continue to put people in office that don't represent us, and not only that, hurt us. So again, when you go August 4th, think about brothers and sisters like Lamar Johnson, and there's many of them across the state of Missouri. Thank you, and let's stay focused on innocence and justice. Thank you.
So next up, we're going to hear from some folks who know firsthand what it's like, what Lamar Johnson is going through. We're lucky enough to be joined today by several individuals who have been exonerated since a wrongful conviction. One of the individuals who would like to be here today has not yet been exonerated, but was granted clemency after serving 36 years for a crime he did not commit. His name was Rodney Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln was convicted here in 1982 in St. Louis City. All of the evidence used to convict him has been overwhelmingly disproven. But despite that, when we went to court for him and said there was no evidence left to convict him, excuse me, we got some noise in the background. I like to believe everyone's just making some loud noise for Lamar. Yeah, I think these folks are going to come join us in just a moment, maybe even a second to park. Thank you all for your patience. I'm going to talk for 1 second about Rodney Lincoln. So Mr. Lincoln was convicted in 1982 of a crime he did not commit based on 2 pieces of evidence: a hair found at the crime scene that they said matched him, and the identification, the coached, manipulated identification of a surviving victim who was just 7 years old at the time. We did DNA testing on that hair. That hair was not his. The victim later came forward and recanted her identification, and there was documents in the file that showed she had been coached and manipulated, and all of these procedures we would no longer use in eyewitness identification is what made that come to be. She went and testified at court. She made a mistake and that Mr. Lincoln should come home. We went to court and we said, look, there's no evidence left to convict him and he should come home. And in 2016, the Western District Court of Appeals in Missouri said Mr. Lincoln mistakenly presumes that evidence of innocence, no matter how overwhelming, is enough to come home. We have only held that innocence is enough if the individual was sentenced to death, and Mr. Lincoln was not sentenced to death. And we lost, even though they did not say he was not innocent. The result of that is Mr. Lincoln had clemency granted on June 1st, 2018, which was the last day of Eric Greitens' day in office. And he was not able to join us because after serving 36 years, he's in his 70s and just not able to join us because of social distancing, but he has a statement that he wanted you all to hear. He says, "Let me start by saying that I am not present today, not by choice, but out of necessity. Those of you who are here to support the notion innocence is enough, I thank you. If you are here simply to support Lamar, you are doing the right thing. My message today is for Lamar. Lamar Johnson is an innocent man. Lamar deserves to be with his family. There is no doubt about his innocence. Lamar is a man with integrity and pride and compassion, and most important to me, I am proud to say Lamar is a friend of mine. To Lamar's family, stay positive, stay faithful. It is going to happen. To Lamar's daughters, I do not know when, but one day you will say those precious words my daughter said to me, Dad is coming home. To you, Lamar, brace yourself, my friend. You will board that plane with me, and we will see the world from a whole new angle as we soared with the eagles."
Next up is recently exonerated Larry Callahan, conviction out of St. Louis County from 1995. Arrest, conviction in 1996. He spent more than 2 decades in custody in Missouri and was released on June 2nd, 2020. So this is his very first time speaking on these issues. He knows Lamar. They served time together in Potosi, and he's grateful to be here. One of the important issues with Larry's case, and it happens in so many, is that it took a really long time. As Jamala mentioned, the time, the money, the resources, the churning over and over and over within the court system. He lost several times, lost again, until he finally prevailed. Tricia mentioned that it shouldn't take lawyers, and it shouldn't take years, and it shouldn't take so much money, but it does. Larry is home, and we are grateful, but there is much work to do. His exoneration shows us that we can make a difference, but it shouldn't take that, because not everybody will get the Innocence Project. Not everybody that deserves it will get a team of lawyers working for them. So we have to do better. We're going to celebrate Larry and Ricky's exonerations and Rodney's as well, but we have to do better, because one at a time is not good enough. And in Larry's case, prosecuting attorney for the county, Wesley Bell, reviewed the evidence and also came out in support of Mr. Callahan. And that is important. These elections do matter. And without any further delay, please welcome Larry Callahan.
How y'all doing today? I'm not going to talk a lot about myself because we're here for Lamar. Lindsay failed to mention that it was her and Cheryl Pilot, a great team of lawyers that were responsible for my release. It shouldn't be this difficult. The evidence of Lamar's innocence is overwhelming. The evidence of Lamar, the constitutional violations that led to his wrongful conviction is overwhelming. It should not be this difficult. to get somebody sprung under these circumstances. And I want to say a little bit about people that may not like me, may not like some of us here, may not like all of us here. These issues should transcend race, gender, the toxic political atmosphere that unfortunately touches all our lives. All of that should matter not in wrongful convictions. And I say that why? Why is that? Because it can happen to anybody. You look at the list of people that have been exonerated. Go back to Ellen Reasnover, Joe Ammerman, Ryan Ferguson, Gary Engel, Ricky Kidd, myself. It can touch any and all of us. This is one thing, one area where we should all be able to agree on and support, even if we have differences. And the people that don't like us, I'm very blunt about this stuff. I want to say to them, if it was you in our shoes, which it very well could be, we would raise our hands for you just like we are for Lamar Johnson. Because yesterday it was all the people I just mentioned, including myself. Today it's Lamar Johnson. Tomorrow it could be you, whether you agree with us or not. You know, the Constitution is supposed to protect everybody. It's a wonderful thing. But the only way that works, the only way that any of us are protected, is if every single one of us is protected equally. That's what this should be about. Unfortunately, you have some people in the system, for whatever reasons, that are going to fight to stop this, have been. And I will just say that they resort to hyper-technical procedural absurdities to try to stop this. Form should never matter more than substance. The evidence is clear. Lamar Johnson needs to come home, should come home, and in supporting him, everybody should raise their hand to support Lamar Johnson, despite any other viewpoint you may have. Because, not just for him, because it's right for him, but because in doing so, you also protect yourself, your loved ones, and the people that you care about. It's the only way it works. It's the only way that this thing works. Is, again, insane. The only way anyone is protected is if all of us are protected equally. Bottom line. So it's really difficult for guys like me and Ricky that sat through this stuff and lived it for decades to understand how politics or these little beefs or whatever goes on interferes with things that are. It's one thing we should all agree on. Fight about everything else, right? But people's rights, you can debate them on the merits, but defend the person's rights in the first place and then debate them on the merits. And that's not what's been going on, and it's sickening. It's sickening in this case and in many other cases. Hopefully someday we get to a place where, I hope anyway, that that's not the case. But unfortunately it is right now, and the only way to move the ball forward in a positive direction is this right here. Everybody coming together. Some of us may have different views, but right is right. Lamar Johnson should be freed. He should have never been in prison in the first place. And I will not stop. I will support it in any way, do whatever is asked of me, anything I can think of, because that's how strongly I feel about this, both in an individual context and in the broader context of criminal justice reform. And there is no doubt, there's tough debates to be had, tough moves to be made in the overall realm of criminal justice reform. These kind of cases should not be tough. It's that clear. Innocence should be enough. That's all I'll say. Free Lamar Johnson.
Thank you, Larry. So you've heard a lot from a lot of folks about these technicalities, right? So you often hear that people get out of prison on a technicality, or they have their conviction overturned on a technicality. But the reality is that it's technicalities that keep people incarcerated, even when it's for something that they never did in the first place. So one individual who knows a lot about that and the fights that we've had to even get in court. So what happens is we will file and we'll say, here's all this evidence, here's everything that shows that they're innocent, and the response will be, oh, but you don't even get to have the process. We're not going to address the evidence of your innocence. We're not going to address whether or not you're innocent at all. We're going to say you shouldn't be in court, you filed too late, it should have been discovered before, you should have raised it in this other place, over and over and over again. We hear it time and time again. And our last speaker is someone who had to lose 11 times before he won. We spent over 6 years in the last one fighting about whether or not we even got to get into court. And I'm very honored to introduce my dear friend and colleague and former client and director of I Am Resilience, Ricky Kidden.
Thank you. Thank you, Trish, Lindsay, Kim, and her staff. Thank you to the family of Lamar Johnson for being strong and continuing to keep up the good fight. Thank everybody who's here today, who took time out of their day today to be here and find this issue important. As they said, I spent 23 years and 3 months wrongfully convicted inside of a maximum level 5 prison here in Missouri, recently exonerated August 15th, 2019, about 11 months ago. But I want to start a little bit different. 23 years ago, I was at Potosi Correctional Center. I was sitting at a table and somebody told me that I know who you need to talk to, because I couldn't really get with the program. I didn't fully understand where I was and why I was here, and they said, somebody else I know, Ricky, fits the bill. They saying they innocent too, they're a writer, they're somewhat reclusive. I wasn't really quick to get into the rigmarole of prison life. I don't want to do that right now. I'm trying to figure out how I got here in the first place. And so they made an introduction, and I was able to meet your father, Lamar Johnson. And he walked over to the table, and we introduced ourselves, and we hit it off real quick and real fast. Now, we didn't fully unpack the innocence aspect of it. That kind of went to the wayside. We just connected, heart to heart, man to man, situation to situation. And one day, we was walking the track, and he said he had to go to the law library. I said, what are you working on? He looked at me. He said, well, I know everybody say this, but I'm innocent. I looked back at him and I said, well, I know everybody say this, but I'm innocent too. And we both started laughing, but you can tell it broke the ice when we both, because people who are innocent feel like you're alone. You feel like you're isolated. You feel like you're the only one. So in that, and Larry know what I'm talking about, and then for the people, they ridicule you, so you don't really want to mention it. But Lamar and I had a connection right there, and from that day forward, we began to work on our cases together. We would hit the library together with this man here as well. Larry, it's so good to see you right here today on these steps of this courthouse. It feels good, my man. Glad to see you on the other side. Let's get Lamar to join us as well, will you? But Lamar and I began to work on our cases together. We would cry by way of letters, send out hundreds of letters. Anybody, somebody, please, please, help, help. But I caught traction a little bit sooner before Lamar did. The Midwest Innocence Project picked up my case. They picked up Lamar's case a little bit behind mine, but I was already in court. So I was well on my way, so I thought. But as Trish just said, in 2009, instead of honoring my facts, they didn't honor Jack. They started niggling over technicalities of law, jurisdictional issues. You went left and not right. You wore red and not blue. All these technicalities instead of honoring the truth, and I thought I was out of there. I wasn't. It took so long for me to come home, 10 years later, that Lamar started gaining traction in his appeals process as far as getting things going. And we looked to each other one day on the yard, Kim, and we said, listen, I don't know who's going to make it first, me or you. But let's make a promise to each other, brother, that whoever make it home first will come back and get the other one. So we looked at each other. and we shook on it. We shook on it. And we meant it like we never meant nothing else before. Fortunately for me, unfortunately for Lamar, I made it home first 10 and a half months ago. But since I hit the ground, I have not stopped raising my voice, joining the cause, standing together, binding together as we are today to make sure that Lamar Johnson and all the Lamar Johnsons come home. It's time that justice takes place. It's time that we support the people who support justice. Now, I know this ain't a political rally, but I gotta say, listen, people often ask Ricky, and you're gonna ask yourself today, what can we do? You came out today, the bikers pulled up, thank you for stopping by and dropping in. But I wanna leave you with something, because people are asking, what can we do? What can we do? And it starts with who we elect in office. So I know this ain't a political rally, but it is politically important that we make sure that prosecutors like Kim Gardner are re-elected back into office, who stands for justice, who have the will, who have the gall, who have the courage to stand up and say, enough is enough. Innocence is enough. Because that's what we're here for today. Hashtag innocence is enough. I want you to challenge me. I want to offer you to a challenge today. Because we all on social media in some shape, form, or fashion. I want you to tag 10 people and tell the hashtag, first of all, innocence is enough, and then ask them, will you consider re-electing Kim Gardner here in St. Louis? Ask them, will they do that? Because that's how Lamar's come home. This isn't about her per se. This isn't about Lamar. This is about the totality of the system that affects her, that affects Lamar, that affects you, and let me tell you why. Because a lot of people think, I don't have a dog in the fight. You do have a dog in the fight. You want to know why you got a dog in the fight? Because when the wrong person's in prison, that means the right person is out there committing crimes again. That's one. That's a community interest. And if you're a taxpayer, you're footing the bill. You're footing the bill at about $20,000 a year. On average, it takes 20 years or 25 to bring somebody home. So you spending $500,000 of your tax dollars keeping the wrong person in prison while your community ain't safe because the real killer is out there because the prosecutor, unlike Kim Gardner, is unwilling to do the right thing. That don't make sense. That don't make sense. And then what about them babies? What about them babies, huh? You heard them babies today? These grown, beautiful black queens today. You know what kept me and Lamar alive? Them faces. You didn't know, but I did. You didn't know me, but I knew you. I knew exactly who you were. Because we walked and we talked and we cried all the time. And we kept our faith going because we had to find something to hold on to. When the system kept letting us down, when the system kept letting us go, you got to find something to hold on to, and it was them babies. It was them babies. They didn't know, but we'll tell them they love us. We'll tell ourselves they need us. They didn't even know. They was too young to even understand it. But we needed something to hold on to. Lamar and I used to talk about you guys all the time. Your daddy loved you, and we held on because of you. Our daughters, we are the same age as my daughters as well. We held on to you because we needed to get back to you. And let's make sure Lamar get back to them. Will you join me? Will you? Will you join my promise that I made to Lamar? Will you join me today in the promise that I made to Lamar? Will you join Kim Gardner in the commitment that she just made? Will you join this legal team that's been fighting tooth and nail to bring Lamar Johnson home? Will you not let it stop at these steps today? Will you please? Lamar needs you. And all the Lamar needs you. There's work to be done. And this isn't a one-size-fits-all. This isn't the end, guys. This is the beginning. I don't know what you expected today. I don't know why you stopped by today. But I want to tell you today, let this be the beginning if you're just now getting started. And if you've been started, let this be a continuum. Until Lamar Johnson come home and all the Lamar Johnsons come home, until we start electing officials that have the courage, the gall, and the forward gall to do the right thing. Let's do that. Let's do that for our country. Let's do that for our neighbors. Let's do that for our county. Let's do that for Lamars, the Rickies, the Larrys, all the individuals, because Larry just said, if it ain't you, it's going to be your neighbor, or it's going to be the guy down the street. It's true. And so I hope you guys Continue to support the hashtag Innocence Enough. I hope you go to the MIP.org, learn how you can further get involved, learn how you can stick in and stay in the fight with us until Lamar is free. Thank you guys. We appreciate your love. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your time. Thank you and God bless.
All right, you all, that includes our incredible speaker panel, and that's it. Thank you all so much for coming. We'll keep you posted. Follow us, MIP.org. We'll keep you posted, but Lamar will come home and we'll have a homecoming.
Okay, so